Thank you everyone for your time, and there's so much to do here, and I hope that your time here will be well spent with me as I take you through this talk, Just Start. So this is my baby. Okay, it's a bit sticky. Okay, so Just Start is a talk that is actually based off of an article I wrote. Not quite an article, it was a blog post. So I wrote a blog post recently based off of a 1,000-word challenge that came from a friend of mine. I was struggling to get clarity of thought, and a friend of mine, published author Mushambi Mutuma, said to me, "You're going to write 1,000 words a day, because you're going to need to learn to download your thoughts, your inspiration, etc." And one night after, a whole lot of introspection, I had this piece come at me while I was sleeping, and the words just came to me. 1,600 words later, I sent a piece to Matt from Yoko, and I was like, "Listen, do what you will, use it, don't use it, but this is so Yoko, and it explains my relationship with this brand." And basically, he loved it so much, he used the extract in the cover or the foreword for the Women in Business report that they did, which was a proud moment for me as Yoko merchant number 10,704. And if you've been listening today, you know that there are over 80,000 Yoko merchants. So I'm very proud to be sitting squarely in the early adopters of this amazing, amazing business. So my name is GUGU NKABINDE. No need to further introduce myself. I'm the founder and the CEO of GUGU Intimates. And basically, I think for me today is wanting to cover the segue between what is this thing about purpose. I think you've heard it a few times today, depending on whichever track you are sitting in. But my life has always had this interesting way of segueing into the different parts of my life and making it all make meaning and make sense. So all of it comes together in an interesting way, because before I could even string together constructive words and sentences, I used to love to retell stories. And initially those used to be adverts. So my childhood was spent in Zimbabwe, where we didn't have a lot of the restrictions on content, so we had amazing content from all over the world. And I used to entertain my mother with this content when she'd come home, where I'd be reciting all of it. So the storyteller part of it started as way back as when I was 5 years old. And that kind of walked me into this journey where I wanted to be a journalist, but I wanted to be an actor, I wanted to own a magazine, and I wanted to work in radio, but I also wanted to be able to help people solve their problems. So getting into everybody's business, basically, but wanting to get paid for it. And I landed up as a strategist after a long career of searching. With a BA Media Studies degree, we bore the brunt of being called generalists. So they were called the BA students. They do nothing really. So I always wanted to make something great out of it. And I came across strategy halfway through my career. And strategy was basically people like me who love other people's business and they want to get into the middle of it, but for a reason, to find a solution, to find a different perspective, and to bring that into light. And the third thing that has sort of shaped my life and has brought me into a space of identifying as somewhat of a consultant is this notion of being a guide, being able to walk with someone through a scenario and help them to see different ideas and different perspectives. And to do that, all you really need is childlike wonder, is to never grow up, basically. So they say growing up is a trap. I love this photo so much. As soon as I can afford it, this is going to be a massive image in my house, because this for me is when I look deep inside and I close my eyes, this is the way that my soul looks, this childlike wonder, this curiosity, this hunger, this need to always know something and to find something new, and actually just entertain myself with the problems of the day. And to keep that going, it's given me a broad perspective. So when I'm asked often to kind of describe what it is that I do, I've struggled to give it one word, because I think the key word at the center of it is perspective. I feel my gift is to helicopter out of a situation and ask you, have you considered? And I go on from there. Have you considered is such a powerful statement to start from. And I think somewhere within where GUGU Intimates came to exist, I asked, have these people even considered? So perspective and being able to view the world from some position outside of your own circumstances, your own experiences, your own limitations, your own traumas, is something that is very important for you to keep, whether you decide to start a business or not, So all this cumulative perspective comes from 35 plus years of experience. And I say 35 plus years because I don't think you can separate the day where you learned, for example, the soft skill of how to listen to the day that you learned to how to write a business model together. So for me, my experience encompasses my whole life. You know, I talk about some of the memories that I didn't realize were part of this journey was I wondered when it is that I actually connected with the underwear category. And it was actually when JT1 launched through Woolies. And my aunt took me at the age of 14 to get my training bra. It was good times. Couldn't wait to get to school and just realize the kind of thing around something that is so intimate and personal to you. So when I talk about 35 plus years of experience, I talk about the accumulation of all the things I've been through. You know, the experiences, the questions, the good feeling things, the not so good feeling things that have brought me here. So I hope to leave some of that in the room with you. Secondly, it's like 14 plus years in the corporate industry. So I started off my career at an amazing company called Unilever. And Unilever was one of the ads I used to sing when I was a child. They were not called Unilever at the time, they were called Lever Ponds, and my mother was a saleswoman for it. So when I was a child, here I am singing to Shield ads and all of that stuff, and later on becoming the Shield brand manager for me was almost surreal. So those 14 years came to show me that bridge between the things that you're passionate about, the things that put a fire up your bum. Those things tend to gravitate towards you. So you keep your focus on those things because that's what multiplies. And then I've got 4 plus years of adventure. I'm going to call it adventure because I think you've heard it all today. There's nothing romantic about entrepreneurship, okay? We are here with the lipstick on and this amazing dress from another amazing entrepreneur who turned on the pots, and I loved what she was wearing. She sent someone to bring this for me and I changed like 30 minutes ago. But the 4 plus years of adventure are because you've got to understand that there is no roses in the journey of starting something big. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of some of that. And then there's many years of coaching and advisory. So I've always found joy in helping figure out their problems. I've said this so many times. So all of that has given me, and all of these brands, I've worked on some of the most amazing brands in the world. I've worked for the likes of Joe Public, where it's one of the most innovative advertising agencies in this country that has recently sold, a dream for most people who can start in this space. I've worked for the likes of FCB, SA Tourism, Avatar. It's all given me such a broad perspective that I'm able to take back into my business. And with that, I also want to tell you today that there is no script to the talk I'm about to give you. We are all hearing this talk for the first time. So I won't know if I've made mistakes, you'll not know if I've made mistakes, but I was really inspired by the idea of having a summit that encompasses everything. So I just picked 8 things, right? If I were to leave you with a simple number of things to remember today. There's been so much information. You've been given so many gems. I don't know if any of you are the kind of note takers like I am, but I think my notebook would be full. But there are 8 simple points that will keep me going and that you can keep me accountable to. And when I go to number 9, you can raise your hand and be like, you said 8. Okay, so let's go on this journey. Let me share with you inspiration, advice, insight, perspective on how you too can just start in your corner, in your little space in the world. Okay, and point number 1. My brother took this photo a week ago. We went out for breakfast, and I was holding the jar, and he said, turn around, and he says, no one is you, that is your power, because he couldn't be here today. And I actually decided to use this as the first part of this talk. So the first thing you need to know about just starting is this. With all the imposter syndromes and all the things that we hear about that we also feed into our brains and they don't help us in this courage that we need, is that we start to doubt our goodness versus the next person, right? You're always comparing yourself because that's what school did. School was there to benchmark you. So now you've got this arm that always needs you to benchmark. You're always comparing yourself. But there's something I need you to know before we start this talk. Right? No matter what I say, no matter how much you feel like the thing that you want to start has already been started, right? No matter how much somebody yesterday told you they've seen something similar, no matter what you've seen online and what you've heard, no one is you, and that is your power. They could have been to the same school as you, they had a different vantage point, they had a different experience. They could have grown up in the same neighborhood as you, but they were at a different angle. The sun rose differently for them. So if you were to grasp that one small point, you're going to spend less time benchmarking. Benchmarking is only meant to help you pace yourself. It's not meant to make you control yourself. So remember that. Remember that no one is you. And that if you can take that individuality and that courage in that what you experience and how you see the world is really unique to you. You are on your way to starting something, because you imagine if the other cell phone companies, seeing what was in the market, thought, there goes. Imagine if Samsung thought, what's the point? Would we be flipping our phones back again? No. So you've got to understand the beauty and the uniqueness of your individuality. And one thing I want to talk about is there's a lot of conversation in corporate that I went through. That's probably why it took so long to make the jump. And that was the whole act like this, act like a this, do like a that, think like a this person, or fake it till you make it. Those are some of the things that I really think do us such a great disservice in how we can bring unique solutions to the world. So you've got to remember that. Your uniqueness is actually your superpower. Your perspective of the problem, your vantage point, the angle at which you see the world is just as important. So don't act like anything. Be you. Be you unapologetically, because the most polarizing brands are some of the most successful brands in the world. The ones that leave you going, I'm not even sure if I like that car. It's kind of pretty ugly. But it drives your curiosity and it makes you go forward. So you've got to trust in the being unpopular. You've got to stop faking it. And you've got to trust that the way that you are is exactly what the world is missing, especially when you look like nobody else. That's really the time. Okay, and number 2, make it mean something. So I'm a very sentimental person, right? And I think you'll tell a lot in the references that I make when I speak. I'm a very sentimental person. And I try to find stories and meanings and deep insights about almost everything, because, what is life? When you're broke or, this and that challenge comes along, you've got to keep yourself somewhat motivated. And one of the things I obsessed with very much so in the beginning, I think it was like slide 2 or 3 of my presentation on GUGU Intimates, it was about what do I want people to feel about this brand, yeah? If you went to make something that will sell in 2 days or 3 days, make something that will, like a hand sanitizer right now, but in 30 days, that may no longer be an issue. Okay, so coming from an experience where you're trying to make money out of a problem, there's a problem, I think I can make money out of it. You will only make money as long as the problem's around. And guess what? Someone is always trying to find a solution for that problem. So make it mean something for me has taken a special meaning, because there are 3 things that you really need to consider when you're talking about make it mean something. It's not about the airy-fairy, have like this big vision statement on your website or your big positioning line on your Twitter handle or your Instagram. You've got to ask yourself 3 main things about your business and the thing that you want to bring into the world. Will it increase the quality of life of a group of people? Who are the people who, by you doing this thing, creating this thing, making this thing available, going through all the sleepless nights, whose quality of life is going to improve? Because that's a sure way for you to create longevity, because once you show me a way to improve my life, I'm not letting you go, right? But if you're giving me a fad and something that's for the now and I'm going to be cool right now, tomorrow I'm going to need something cooler. And 2, you've got to look at how you can right a wrong. Yeah? Because we know that with society, as long as we are humans, being around humans, one of the things that we do is we wrong each other, because we are dual kind of people. We are good and bad. We are not good or bad, we are good and bad inherently. So there's always wrongs out there for you to right, whether they're systematically caused by poor governments or famines or things that are forces of nature. How do you right a wrong with what you've done? Even if it's an accounting business, what is the wrong that you can right with you being in business? And the 3rd thing is to prevent the end of something good. Some businesses that we've come across have actually come to stop something good from ending. If you look at the likes of Lego, it's to never stop growing up, to never stop being a kid. Stop the end of something terrible. Imagine if we all grew up. Oh my gosh, I refuse. Mark me, they say give me 0, ma'am. So for me, if you're looking at something with the intention of getting money out of it, you're only going to attract 2 to 3 types of people. You're going to attract consultants, people with modules on modules on modules and models on how you can structure your things. You're going to attract those people because they're going to promise you they can organize your thoughts. But when you have meaning, only you can define that. You can give it its growth, you can give it its shape, you can give it its size. The other type of people that you tend to attract are unfortunately MBAs, people who want to come and practice theory on you. And not to slate MBAs, I just want to make that clear. What is very important is to balance knowledge with experience. So when you're focused on making meaning, you are able to, I find it kind of kicks off the chaff. People who want to make money fast get bored by you very quickly, and they move on. So it's another way to kind of safeguard yourself and keep it together, is you can actually decide, I'm going to make this meaningful. And I think a friend of mine put this quote up on my website, the guy who challenged me to the 1,000-word exercise. He was building my website, and he was going through a lot of the stuff. I mean, I started on presentation before there was anything tangible. And he found this thing, and he put this as a quote blown up on the website. And it says, I started this brand to start a movement pro-brown skin. I didn't want to be anti-anything. It wasn't about, it's not for you. It's just about celebrating and preventing the end of something good and giving a certain kind of people an identity that I felt was being ignored. How is it in a continent of billions of people of different melanated skin tones has no one thought that nude could mean my skin tone? How? So I was trying to right a wrong, and I was really aggrieved about it. I mean, I was petrified of being an entrepreneur, but I just couldn't go to bed anymore having come up with this insight. So make it mean something, because even when there's no tangible bra yet, and you're still working off of PowerPoint slides, just the meaning fires you up. It's what keeps you going when you don't have money, and you don't know how you're paying for the lights, you don't know how you're paying your staff member, but the meaning helps you to find new ways. It keeps you adaptive. It keeps you innovative. And the question that I kind of leave everyone with now, this was something that was at the periphery of my business kind of write-up. Isn't it time that nude actually meant nude? Right? That was the meaning I intended to give my business. And what does nude actually mean? For me, it was being comfortable in your own skin, right? It was you being able to see yourself when you look at images. We don't Photoshop our women. We want nude to mean I'm naked. Naked can't mean another film layer of filter on you. Naked must be just you. So make it mean something, and you can't go wrong, because that meaning will help you find your tribes. It will help you find your resonant consumers. I watch with awe the number of people that walk up to the stand and tell me how long they've waited to either find us or to be able to even afford it, understanding that it's a customized product. It's not going to be at the same benchmark pricing as retail. I went to the extent of trying to custom match these shades. So when we make something so meaningful and so powerful, you eventually elevate yourself to understanding its value. So that's another thing that giving your brand and your business meaning helps you to do later on. And you look at the kind of women that have come up. So every time I get a DM that says, I want to model for you, I'm like, that's great, but we're not a modeling agency. These are genuinely GUGU Intimates customers, right? So we source our content from everyday women. That is actually a photographer in the middle who had come to take behind the scenes footage of another photo shoot. And after watching other women, she was like, you know what, this means something to me. I've never done this before, but I'm going to do it. Meaning helps you gather traction. Meaning helps you look back and find other people who can see the reason in your meaning. So these are the photos that make me very proud. This was one of my ex-colleagues at Castle Light back in the day. This is an interior decorator who thought, you know what, women who have my shape and size need to see women who have my shape and size, so I'm stepping up. She had bought and she had seen herself in a different light. So please, at the beginning of it, when you've got that amazing idea, what meaning are you going to put into the world as a result of your business actually coming to life? Even if it is a commodity, there is more to life than just the goods we need. We are more than just people who buy things. Okay, so now you've got this whole meaning and you've got your nice statement. I mean, the new naked is a tagline that we use because that's what we're trying to challenge, that whole nude thing. Like, it's the new naked. This is it. This is how you stand. We don't send naked nudes anymore. We put on GUGU Intimates. We give the illusion of nude and we go. But when you've now got that meaning, you've got to create a rallying call. How do you create this amazing thing? They say if a tree fell in the forest and nobody heard it, did it even fall? Was there even a tree? Right? So you've got to create a rallying call or statement. And I just spoke to you now about some of the statements that have come from other people who've played back GUGU Intimates to me that have actually been so profound, that were simple words. But when you create a rallying call or statement, you give something to galvanize other people for you around. So now you've got this thing that you want to start, you've given it meaning, you know what you want to do with it in the world. So you've got that gravitas, you've got that impetus that makes you push for it, right? So you've got to create that statement. Here's another slide that was pulled out. I mean, these are documents from 2016. This talk was so exciting for me to do because I was going through a very low point in the business and cash flow, that two-eared, two-devil dog. And I started to go through some of this old stuff. And I talked about GUGU Intimates is about uncompromised individual beauty and the collective strength of women in all shapes and shades, and of women of all shapes and shades. Sorry. So one of the things that has kept us going is when we look at these different women and how they come together, it wasn't just about the physique of shape and shade, right? It was even about balancing strengths, the things that you're strongest at, maybe the other things that the next person is not strong of. So I looked at some of the keywords and I was trying to find the new naked that I just mentioned. And the keywords I gave to this lady who was creating the brand's visual identity for me was, it's a story brand. I always want to tell stories because that's who I am. So I don't want it to become a cosmetic photo shoot, posed, very clinically photoshopped kind of brand. I wanted to always tell stories of other women, stories of how we got here, stories of identity, stories of belonging. And I also wanted it to be distinctly African. So when I started, I wasn't the first in the world. It was the first in the continent. There was a brand that existed out of London. And I thought, but there's something that this African girl hadn't yet touched on that I had a different perspective on. And this was the politics of identity. So I wanted it to be African somehow, not with the tribal print necessarily, but how does it remain distinctly African? And I wanted it to be strong because also when looking at the fabrics that I was working with, it was like a delicate fabric. If you'd like to take a look at our stand, it's such a delicate fabric. I wanted to come out that women are that delicate but strong. So how do I show that with like bold typefaces? I'm going to make sure that I mean what I say, like be bold about the font size, be bold about the size of the image, go on Photoshop, light it well. So that strong had to come through. Authentic as well. So I've had a big challenge in trying to understand my own authenticity. Who am I when I'm not trying to impress somebody else? Who am I when I'm just being me? And I wanted that to come through in the brand. Discerning, elegant, and good value for money. So understanding that I'd chosen this mountain to climb where South Africa doesn't even have a good milling industry for the fabric that I use. So it had to be an import job. And I knew already that there'd be costs to it, right? So you're not going to pay the same amount that you'd get from JT1 or that you get from Mr. Price because they didn't customize. They went stock standard. Those fabrics exist. They can buy them in bulk at economies of scale. I custom dyed these. So how do I make it good value for money? How do I make sure you understand why you need it? And then simplicity and focus. So everyone asks, are you ever going to have black? Are you going to have a red one? I'm like, no, simplicity and focus. Nude is a category. And it's enough of a category for us to understand and spread it out into swimwear, into shapewear, into maternity wear, mastectomy. Can you imagine how many other nude things we still need? So all of those things coming together for me is how I came up with the concept of the new naked with a lady called Amy. Amy and I actually never ever met face to face, but I sent her the phrase and I was like, don't you think this sounds arrogant and cheeky? And she was like, no, you gave me those bullet points and I also came back at the same thing. That is the new naked, strong, unapologetic, simple, but focused. It's authentic, it's African, you know, and it's beautiful at the core of it. And it has got a positive outlook about everything. So creating that rallying statement that the new naked became something that women started to give meaning on their own. So while I couldn't patent what God made, which is skin tones and what my fabrics are dyed to, one of the statements that I saw even global overseas brands try and crouch into the territory of the new naked and we were able to, push them back, is that it is something that is a rallying call. It's about this is new and there will be many other ways to bring it to you. So when you've created yourself that rallying call or statement, then you're going to come back and connect the dots. Yeah? So I've already given you a little bit of snippets and stories about how some of the things that made GUGU Intimates what it is today come from as far back as me being a 5-year-old, singing back adverts, trying to understand what sticks, what catches, what women like to feel like, watching women around me not find themselves in underwear categories. All of these dots for me connect. And I look at it this way. This is quite an academic kind of slide, right? But when you think about it, this is like just the process of life. So you get data. This is what you're going through every day. You're getting data right now. I'm giving you data. points. Not that data to go online, but data as in some points, some facts, some information. You're getting this all the time at the speed of knots now because you're listening to me while you're looking at your phone, while somebody is doing something else, speaking next to you. You are taking in all this data. You convert this data into information. You're deciding what you want to keep in. This is throughout your life. You decide the things that have made a mark and have impacted you, right? And you're taking those things on. You don't realize it probably at the time. Trust me, I didn't realize it at the time. I get to reflect on these things when I stand on stages like this, and I go, wait, and that's when that happened. When I decided that, okay, we're going to do this. It actually happened when I was 16. So everything is definitely connected to everything, because once you take that information as well, you're converting that information, and what retains and what sticks and what resonates with you and what is part of your bigger purpose here, it becomes knowledge. Knowledge is what you keep now. It moves from this part of your brain and it moves to here, where it comes from a place of knowing. Now, these are the things that you know that can show you contrast. When you know something, now you know what difference looks like. And this is where insights come in. This is where you can be standing in a boardroom, much like myself, wearing a white shirt like this, and suddenly having the insight that I think everyone can see through my shirt. Snap. That's an insight. That's knowledge, that's information, and then the insight is, why can't my bra do what the bra is supposed to do, which is disappear? Why must be a staring underneath my shirt? That's the insight. Now, the insight for me was so challenging, and I think it's just God, it's inspiration. I left that day and I went to a farewell of a female colleague that happened to only have females at it. And I was late because I stopped by my house to change out of the white shirt because I just couldn't anymore. I couldn't unsee what I saw in that meeting. I just felt like everyone was seeing through my shirt. So when I got there late and they asked me why, I replied with a question, what do you guys do under white shirts? Because I don't think I'm winning at this game. And then the answers were like, I buy a camisole, there's these tops from Mango that I wear, they are seamless. I'm like, hold up. So you're telling me that you buy underwear, you spend good money, you look good, and then you go and you put something over it so that nobody can see it. That's dumb. That for me was what moved the insight into inspiration. I am also that kid you don't tell not to do stuff. It also comes back to bite you later on, and I'll talk about it, because inspiration is not what keeps the business going. It gets it started. So I was so inspired, I was so challenged that I did that research, and from it, I went into what I call using my intuition. I had to then take, okay, what I want doesn't exist, right? Now, I'm not going to find a module that's going to show me how to do this. So where do you go then, right? You've got the internet, but you don't want to create another Nubian skin. You don't want to create another XYZ. You want to create your thing. And that's where after inspiration, intuition needs to come in. And I'm going to throw in a sub-point there about how well you keep up with yourself. This is just from a less academic and all the stuff that we do to make sure that we're learning, we're growing, we're getting ourselves information. Are you grounding yourself so you can hear your own voice? You were put on this earth. Remember, no one is you. What are your unique set of instructions that you came back with? And that's where intuition is going to play a big role for you, because it's going to take your gut. Every person is going to project their fears on you. They're going to tell you the world from their perspective. When I did this, or someone in my family, they probably don't even know the person. They heard about a person who heard about a person. So where you're going to sift this through and decide what's for you, that's where your intuition comes into play. And when you can trust your intuition, that's where innovation happens. Because innovation is not just about adapting what exists. Sometimes it's the wild, crazy thing, the thing that didn't exist, but your gut told you that the world will never be the same unless you do this thing. For me, I was crazy mad about this business, so much so that when I had flown to Asia to now go and find someone to custom dye this fabric for me, and I shortlisted 3 suppliers, I'm the girl that came back and wrote a resignation letter for a job I hadn't even started. Yeah. I know. So I had resigned from my old job. I was going to a new job. Kind of wasn't sure about it, but I mean, you get a job. That's what you do. You don't start a business without a job. But at the same time, it was also that intuition that said, let me tell you something. By the end of this year, if you don't do this thing, someone else will, and you'll never forgive yourself. So innovation came for me at that point of where my gut just wouldn't sleep. So I came back, typed my resignation letter, still went to work day 1. And the universe, true to what it was, everything fell apart. They didn't know I was coming that day. They didn't have a laptop for me. They didn't have a place for me to sit. And I'm like, girl, it's a sign. Day 2, Oh, my boss has gone off somewhere. She's not even there to tell me what I'm there to work on. I'm going to go meet clients by myself. Should I even be here? And that time, my suppliers are going, when do you want to start? Prototyping, woo, let's do this. And I'm going, that's all I want to do. That's really what I want to do. So for me, if you're going to connect the dots, it's what's going to help you where no one else, not an advisor, not a consultant is going to give you this part. You've got to connect the dots for yourself. And a soft tip for me, I carry a notebook everywhere. I carry cue cards everywhere. I'm always writing. So you document your life, document your insights, document the information. Make note of the knowledge. Once you know that that's knowledge, I know X, document it, because it's at those turning points where you will need all those things to serve you, and that will give your intuition that extra go. All right? Cool. So we've connected the dots. We are on our way. We're just about to start this business. Okay, number 5. So develop a business model, right? So you decide the idea of your business. For me at the time, this is the first nude first nude underwear brand on the continent. It is going to be a space of reflection for women to see themselves finally not like Victoria's Secret models, but like women who eat, women who are wholesome, women who not necessarily look like me, because I'm also quite tiny. I'm not a representation of the world. But you've got to decide what's the business model. If you're going to have a business, what is the model? What's your modus operandi? What's your plan? What's the plan? How are you going to do this? And this crippled me for quite a while. Okay, I was paralyzed. I was not going to share this stat, but I spent 25,000 Rand. I don't think I've told this to my brother. He's going to be shocked. I spent 25,000 Rand on a business plan and a logo pack while I still worked. And that's the problem with having too much money. And none of those things made any use for me. Let me tell you something. I must actually travel around with that thick swag that this guy gave me 10,000 Rand later of a business plan that was downloaded from B-plan templates from the internet, did not take Africa into account, did not have actual stats, but it was this thick. I still didn't know how I was going to run the business. He couldn't even present the thing back to me. I call it school fees, and that's why I'm telling you about this now. I think I should talk about it more. But you've got to create a business model, and there's no one who's going to do this for you. There's no amount of money you can outsource this for. It starts with you. And for me, I didn't realize that I didn't trust myself. I've been working for big multinationals. I've had such a great run of getting to run people's businesses at low risk at a distance. But here I am, taking my hard-earned money, going to give a guy sitting in Boksburg. Oh my God. Still embarrassed. Somebody buy me a drink after this. I spent money wanting a guy to tell me how to make this idea that I received from God, that all the serendipity in the world had aligned to make me come to as a business idea. And here I am just saying to this guy, now, give me the plan so I can go do the things. No, that's not how it works. The business plan is actually simpler than you think. For me, before you even go and you buy a whole bunch of stuff, you've got to ask yourself 4 key questions. I'll give you a 5th as a bonus. What to create or to offer. So I knew that, right? It's the first nude underwear brand in the continent. It's going to be nude for all shades, shapes, and sizes. I knew that. What do I want to offer? Undergarments. I don't want to go anywhere else. It must go under the clothes. Or at the very least, swimwear. That's as far as I'll go. Also, I'm still going to play with that. Great. How to create. So I jumped on a plane. I told you about how I came back and resigned. Let me tell you about the trip. So when I decided to resign from the previous job to the next, I looked online and I was like, right, no one here can make this, or the only company that seems to be able to custom dye or make underwear in South Africa is making for my 2 biggest competitors before I even start. They were producing for Playtex and Wonder Bra. I was not going to go ask them if they can help me produce because they know they'll get bigger volumes from those other guys. They could easily just burn a phone, hey guys, we've got an idea for you, here. So I bit the bullet, something that I continuously pay for because the product is not made in South Africa. But I had to figure out how to create. In my experience with corporate and all those companies I've worked for, as much as the coronavirus also came from there, they also manufacture dope stuff, okay? Asia. Asia is the place where they are innovation-minded. I jumped on a plane because I went online to find out if there is an underwear and textile fair that happens anywhere in the world. That underwear and textile fair fell slap bang in the 5 days I'd taken to take a break between old job to new job. It was happening in that time. That's what I mean by serendipity got me there. I wasn't about to let this idea go. I'm like, what? And then a guy who owed me money from moonlighting consultancy I'd done a year before decided to call me and say he was paying me, and that was the money I needed for the flight. So on a flight, went to go figure out how to create, and interviewed suppliers with 5 simple questions. Do you custom dye? What is your minimum order quantity? Do you ship to Africa? How do you do that? And what are your hygiene practices? And can I do supply agreements to make sure that you don't give anyone the stuff that I've created? And 3 guys came out tops on that list, and that's, by the time I landed back in South Africa, it was 1 guy, and that's the guy that made the product. So you've got to figure out how to create, and you've got to understand your own limitations, and you've got to ask the right questions to your suppliers. And that is, in essence, a business model. Not a lot of the thicker books. Those you get into if you really need the technical stuff. But if I'm keeping it 100 with you, you've got to understand, how am I creating? Like, go through it bit by bit and make like you're talking to your 10-year-old niece or nephew or child. And then whom to serve. You've got to know that person well. Luckily for me, my job has always been around helping people understand who they are serving. So in branding, what you're always trying to find out is that consumer insight, right? You're trying to get to what's the thing that's going to make the consumer pick your product over the next. And I figured out who to serve because I was that girl, my mother was that girl, my aunt is that girl, my friends are that girl. So whom to serve was very easy for me to start off with because that was a place of strength. So that I wrote very quickly. I defined that woman. She was beautiful and comfortable in her skin. She was all shades, shapes, and sizes, and all of that. And then it was about, how am I going to deliver to her? So I make this thing, how will it get to her? All right. So if it's an accounting service, how will it get to those people? How will you deliver? Is it face-to-face? Are you sitting somewhere? Are they calling in? Can you Skype it in? Can you make other ways to make it quicker? Can you deliver in less time? How do you get it to that person, and how do you manage that whole delivery and customer service experience? And if I'm being honest with you, these are the core things that make up your business model. You know, if you don't figure these out before you ask an expert, a consultant, an MBA, they're going to tell you how the market is. I was served a stat by 10,000 Rand business plan guy that said the whole world is moving online. Let me tell you something. Women don't buy underwear online because the returns policies don't allow you to. So no, you need to figure out your consumer and how you're going to deliver to them. Don't let someone else tell you that the internet says. No. You need to understand your customer and let them tell you how you can best deliver to them. Yeah? So there's a very popular business model canvas. I happened to walk past the insights track and I saw someone speaking about how this only gives you the initial questions, but once you've put these things down, it doesn't allow you to track. But do have a look at the business model canvas because it does give you that beginning clarity of thought. Not all of us start off our things wanting to make the next Yoko or the next Uber, right? But it does give you a lot of grounding to come and put your thoughts onto a simple page. There are other resources and tools that you take on to keep track of your business, to get the feedback you need to pivot and move on and change your business to meet the growing demands of it. But to get started, ask yourself the simple questions. Who are you going to partner with? Who's distributing for you? Are you doing it yourself? Are you also starting a distribution company? You see, that's an important question before you go and rent warehouses on warehouses or starting a manufacturing factory. Do I need to or can I partner? You're looking at things like key activities. What exactly do you do? Have you ever looked at some businesses and thought, wait, I'm lost. What do you do, actually? I'm not sure anymore. I thought you did this, but now here you are serving me crayons. I'm no longer sure. You've got to understand your key activities, what exactly it is that you do, and don't confuse that with the things that need to happen for your business. Right? It's not the same thing. What are the activities that you do? And the key resources that you'll need. You're looking at the cost structure. One thing that's constantly, any entrepreneur here who hasn't said this is lying, that's constantly kicking our butts is the cost structure. Understanding where you're spending the money from where you're getting it, keeping an absolute hold on everything. Getting that right and getting the right experts around you is super important. Understanding the channels that you're going to communicate through or you're going to serve your customer through. So this particular template is quite great, and there are many filled-in examples available online. If you're still at the place where you're just trying to get going, it's a great resource to start. But there's other things like other resources like your online MBAs, etc., that can do this for you in less time, where they actually give you the tangible steps, the tangible questions, the tangible things that you can ask about your specific business that is unique. Because it's unique, You started it. You didn't see it in the market. So what else would I see with fresh eyes? But it's an amazing resource for you to have. So now you've got this amazing inspiration. You feel great. You're starting this business. And here we are. You are now trying to put it into a plan. Here's something that you can use. And then you've got a plan, right? So how many of you go to pool parties or used to go to pool parties? Yes? Yes, pool party, yay. Great. How many of you get into the water? Tell the truth. See, that's like a third of the hands that went up. A lot of people like to stand around the swimming pool. I looked at that Bacardi Holiday Club the other day and I was like, yeah, man, that's a pool party. Definitely in Africa. Nobody dives in, right? So for me, there's the other notion of you've got to get going though. You've done the things that I've just spoken about. You've connected your dots. You've got this idea. It's keeping you up at night, quite frankly. You can't pay attention. You don't want to go out with your friends anymore. They're inviting you to stuff and you're just like, that's not really my vibe anymore. Like, you're trying to associate differently. One of the things you got to do real quick is just get going. I want to tell you a little bit about that picture there. If you want to ask me how I started GUGU Intimates, it was this elementary. So at the bottom there are Miss Salon London makeup shades. I literally scooped out the powder and I swatched it on paper the day before I jumped on a plane to go to China. And I bought a Pantone reference book and I created Pantone codes out of an aggregation. I sat at Jawad's hair salon for close to 3 months interviewing women on what shade of makeup they were and what bra size they were. So you've got all this information and we know what information does, right? Analysis, paralysis, and you don't do nothing. It was very important for me to do this exercise the day before I jumped on the plane because it could have overwhelmed me. So there's something really magical about finding those moments of go, those moments where you know in this split second, if you don't just dive into the pool, it's never going to happen. You're going to stand on the side. So there's 3 principles I want you to remember about just getting going. I'm also not talking about recklessness and not thinking about the future, and not securing your sources of income, because there's nothing like trying to run a business when you don't know where you're going to pay the lights from and you don't know how you're going to pay your staff. Is number one, you got to dare to be crazy. Right down to the day that my business launched, we pre-launched the business before I even had a full stock of product. I only had 60 sets as a sample. And on that morning when the website kept crashing and I wanted to cancel the pre-launch, so I don't know how many of you saw the day GUGU Intimates launched and broke the internet. It was in March of 2017 where we just said this product is coming. And we trended until like the website literally crashed like 4 or 5 times in the day because you amazing people couldn't wait. You went there. I had to be crazy. Imagine me telling you now that I only had 60 sets at the time. I still needed to raise the R1 million to get my stock out of Asia, landed here, packaged to ship to you. Yeah? So this is a scenario from my old apartment. Those are the boxes. They just arrived and I was crying on the phone to my brother in Zim on some what have I done? This stuff has just arrived in my house. That is the actual footage of what happened. So you've got to dare to be crazy because there's moments of go and you know them. And this is a gut thing. No business book is going to tell you this. Maybe a coach who knows you well and that you're vulnerable too. But you've got to dare to be crazy. Daring to be crazy means you're taking one strong leap after the strong leap, measured, of course, but you've got to dare to be crazy. The guy that started, the lipstick that you twist up and down, and where our mothers used to have to dig it out with, our moms used to have to dig lipstick out. You couldn't do that whole twisty thing. It wasn't efficient. The guy who decided, I'm actually going to put a mechanism that's going to do this, was crazy. The person who decided that we're moving from this type of car to this kind of car had to be crazy. So you've got to dare to be crazy to get going. And 1 and 2, when I thought about what lasting image do I want to leave with people, it was about women seeing themselves as they are. Now, the day before said real launch, so the stocks landed about 4 months later, we raised the money, got a silent partner, we brought the stock in. I decided I'm going to launch with a photo exhibition because I wanted brown skin to be celebrated as art. I knew if I went in as a product, I'm making underwear, I would have just gotten 1 or 2 interviews and it would have gone under. So my years of experience as a marketer would have gone to waste. I needed to make conversation, content, a topic that people would care about. And I created this exhibition. And then the night before, when I'm printing the images, a designer, who is now a good friend of mine, thank God, comes and sees me looking at the photos, and he starts criticizing them because he didn't ask any questions. He's like, why is the dimple on her leg still there? Why is this still there? He doesn't understand the ethos behind my brand, right? That I really am trying to stop this notion of women being photoshopped and women thinking that there's something wrong with their stretch marks, putting spirit on it. How do I change that? How do I make new meaning out of comfortable in your own skin? And of those things, I had to look at how polarizing these images could be. You can love them or you can hate them. You can wish I could put it away, or you can go, oh my gosh, it's about time. That's being crazy. So you've got to decide to craft a new narrative. And I spoke about making meaning earlier. I was so hell-bent on making meaning that I didn't care if the only thing that trended was the actual exhibition of these amazing women. This is what it actually looked like. Was stunning. We got a room that was like painted white from ceiling to floor. You could walk and view the women as art. They were in the room themselves, and you could see it. Like, there she is, and that's her actual bust size. That's her actual hip size. Those are actual scars. So these women helped me create art and make something really meaningful. But I had to get started, and to get started, I had to find crazy people along the way. Yeah? And these initial women hadn't even bought GUGU Intimates yet. They were just women I was like, do you know how amazing you will look? Do you know how amazing you will look? I have this image of you, and I think I want you to see it. A lot of these women could not believe these images. Some of them had never posed in underwear before. But daring to be crazy allowed me to want to be a pioneer beyond just making product. Okay, and then the other one is just from a nerd like me, and I know it's because my job is to always find out information and stats. But stay hungry and stay foolish. There's not too much to say about this. It's really simple. You've got to stay foolish. Know that every day the world is evolving, and other people who are spending more time looking for information know more than you. So try and always know more. And it's not about living in a fear economy of always being afraid of the next thing to come, but know the most about your thing. Okay, I tried to know the advances of underwear. I've started to follow underwear brands to a point where in the beginning it used to annoy me when people DM me other nude, obscure brands from other parts of the world. I'm like, don't you think I know? Trust me, my motto is to always know. Before Victoria's Secret came up, that's what we wanted to do. Okay, so novelty seeking and being open to experience is what will keep your business fresh. And assume nothing, question everything. Always ask why. Ask why not. Why does nude underwear not exist? The other problem that I came across that I'm going to try and wrap with the last point on collaboration is I was not selling online because I was lied to about online stats. Not lied to, I chose to take the bare truth. But there was this interesting information that shopping malls are dying, SAs stop spending, no one is doing the things. And I was seeing these empty stores and I was thinking, I could use that store while they look for a tenant, and I can find other women like me, and we can share the rent in the meantime so you guys can find us. And we developed a thing that I now call the art of the pivot. There were 5 or 6 businesses who were going through the same thing, all thinking of shutting down, because, wow, what are we going to do? And we had to find something good to make of something bad that was happening to us. Are our products useless? I don't think so. Our customers just needed to find them. So you can change the plan if you stay hungry, if you assume nothing, if you stay learning. And I'm just going to speed by to, this is an example of some of the work that we were able to do. This is a concept called Love by Africa, one of the first concept stores that I created. A Macy's model for small entrepreneurs to go, we can be in malls too. We don't have to sign a 3-year lease. So pivoting is asking the other question, okay, so what do we do with that problem? And always don't stop. Once you start, don't stop. Find a way to flip the problem on its side and get to something amazing. The last thing is find a few kindred souls along the way. I want to skip right down to the moral of the story because you have to balance your skills, your strengths, and your talents, right? So stay without an understanding of what you're good at and what you bring into the world. You're never going to understand how you can lean on others. Then you're always insecure. For me, I learned along business that I know my strengths. I can do the perspective thing. I can create the brand. I can tell the story. But finding a few people along the way is what has kept me going when, one, I couldn't make the 25,000 Rand rental at Rosebank, and we got Corium in. We got Aluta sunglasses in. We got Limba in. We got a few brands in to cater for this woman. So we balanced off discovered our strengths, and we balanced off our weaknesses. But one key thing that people always ask, and they've asked today, is whether to partner up or not to partner up. I admire the Miss Salon London trio because they've done something that women have been told cannot be done, and they're still doing it 12 years in. You can partner up if you're so inclined, if your business allows, if you have people who you understand each other's values, right? But I can tell you now, I have a minority partner within my business. Yes, I could be further if I had more people, but the horror stories that I hear are enough for me to go, rather the right partner than any partner. That's that on that. It's the only thing I have to say about that. And then the other thing I've found strength in is sounding boards. I created what I call an advisory panel, where I found a CMO, a CEO, a chairman, a head of supply chain, people who just do those things well, either in corporate or in business, and I call them my board. I ask them, I soundboard things off of them. So that is another way for you to collaborate. Consider finding a board of directors that you just appoint by asking them nicely and maybe paying them in coffee and food to come around you once in a while and help you look at your business differently. I also offer the service. We are able to bring around entrepreneurs who can help you give new perspective to your business. Collaboration is a survival key. I can't play that up enough. It got us into the US, it got us into Sandton City Mall as a business under 3 years of trading. It doesn't come without its own pitfalls. I can tell you now, we've had to wrap up a Rosebank pop-up because people stopped paying rent. So criteria is important. You've got to scan people. People will only collaborate when it serves them. Don't forget that. Humans are human. So when you're doing collaboration, set your criteria and your objectives. Sift your people. Make sure there is a shared vision. You require collective participation, so make sure there's collective input. They are all sold in on it. The people who were there ripping the papers off the window with us in the beginning were sure to be the people that were going to pay their rent. I should have known. They showed me the investment up front. And then hold each other accountable. Contracts. Sorry, there's no other way. In writing, lawyers, contracts, because when it gets ugly, the hugs are forgotten. The niceties are forgotten. Collaboration is key, but this is still business. But oh, when it works. I want to show you something I'm really proud of. Business has been really challenging for me, but collaboration is when a friend who owns a production house needs content for a pitch, and this is what they do for you. Thank you. Oh. Okay. Okay, let's try this one more time.